Hello everyone, this is Better Mix with Mix Training, and today I'm going to show you how to make an amazing menu that works with Gamepad, keyboard, and mouse. And it also has textures that switch when you switch the buttons and when you press them. Alright, so let's get started. Alright, so almost 2 years ago I made this tutorial. Wow, it's been almost 2 years. And a lot of people have seen this tutorial, and I had a bunch of questions from a lot of people. And the main thing is that they don't want to use the standard buttons. They want to use textures and be able to switch the textures when you activate the button and when you press them. It's a very simple thing to do in other places, but here you just have to do a little bit of a trick to get it working. But it's not that hard. The other thing is that when I made this tutorial, it was the first time I solved this issue, but now I have a much simpler way to do everything. So everything from the beginning to the end will be much simpler than this tutorial was. So this is the project that I created. If we go to what I'm actually doing, see, this is the whole thing that controls the whole menu, and it's very simple actually. This is the part that controls the switching of the textures, and that's something that a lot of people had asked me how to do. And it's kind of hard to explain in a comment in YouTube, but now I'm gonna show you how to do it, which is way better. So this is all you need to do. Of course, you have more buttons. This won't get bigger. Just your buttons array will receive more buttons, which is here. That's another thing that people told me about. Just make it an array, and I agree that they are right. Making an array is better. So let's start building this from scratch. Okay, so I have Unreal Engine open here, and we're gonna start with a blank project, so we are all in the same playing field. So I like to use the twin stick shooter because it's already kind of a simple game already done, so you can integrate this into your game simpler. I don't want the starter content, no problem with that. I just set my path, and I'm gonna put a name here. Create the project. Alright, so the project is created. You can see my layout is a bit different than the standard, but it's all the same. The only thing I'm gonna do here is import the textures that we're gonna use, and these are the textures. You can see they are textures. I made these textures in Photoshop. I have a huge play button, which will be, that's the over state, and that's the press state. So there are textures. This can be whatever textures you want. I just changed the colors a little bit. I made this like glow a little bit, and this red to kind of accentuate when you press it. But you can use any textures you want. This is not a color trick anymore, as we did in the last tutorial. To import the textures, very simple. Just create a folder here, textures. I'm gonna go inside that folder and just drag all those textures there. There we go. Unreal Engine, import the textures and just save those. And there we go. The textures are imported. Now let's start creating the buttons. Okay, now let's create the menu. Let's go to the blueprints folder, right click, and scroll down, user interface, widget blueprint here. Let's call this main menu because it's gonna be our main menu. Double click to open it. And this is gonna be very simple. I'm just gonna use a text to just have some text at the top. Of course, you can put whatever you want. Here I'm just gonna show you how to make those buttons respond to navigation. Okay, now the trick here is creating a vertical box, and the vertical box will help us with navigation and will receive all the input. So let's go to panel and create a vertical box. Just drag it here. So the vertical box is going to be the main thing here. I'm just going to scale it anchor it to the center. Just gonna use some values I know already work. If you are using the same texture, just use these values. So now we're gonna create buttons inside this vertical box. This is very important. Just create 1, 3 buttons. I'm gonna put 3 buttons here, and I'm gonna start adding textures to those buttons. Just select the first one, go to style, expand the normal, and here I'm gonna type play to filter this and type normal. Select the normal one. For the second one, you know what? I'm gonna just delete these buttons and then just copy the first one, so it's easier to set up. So just select that button, horizontal alignment, put it to center and center. There we go. It looks better. The aspect looks as it should. Now just fill the other states, like the hover state will be. You can type play. Just select the over here, and for the press state, again same thing, play, select the press state there, and there we go. That button, it's completed with the textures. Now let's change the name. This is very important. Now let's just copy that one. When you paste, select the vertical box and paste it there. Paste it 2 times, and now change the texture for the other 2 buttons. Alright, now that we changed the texture for the 3 buttons, the menu is ready. Okay, so the trick here is using the built-in navigation that Unreal Engine includes. So if you select the vertical box here, you can see there's a navigation section here. This means that you can navigate the content of this vertical box using keyboard and gamepad. So it's very simple to do these things now. So the only thing we need to do here, so when we navigate up, we want to wrap. So this means when we are here and press up, you're gonna go down here. In the previous tutorial, we had to program that with blueprints, but now using this is very simple to do. Want to do the same thing for down, just wrap. And for left and right and next and previous, we are not gonna do anything because this is just a vertical menu. If you have elements going to the sides, you will use these guys as well. So let's compile this. Okay, to add the menu, I will go to the player. I like to add the menu to the player. In this case, it will work really well. Some people like to put it in the level blueprint, but I don't like to use the level blueprint that much. So I'm gonna press Ctrl E to edit the blueprint for the player, and you can see this is the blueprint for the player. It's very simple. That's actually the fire. Let's go to the event graph, and this is the blueprint for the player, the main blueprint. So what we're gonna do is put an event begin play. Now we're gonna create the widget here. Create widget. We're gonna select the widget that we created. It's called main menu. But now we need to put it on the screen. So that's there's a really nice function, add to viewport, and that adds the widget to the viewport. We can already compile and play this, and it will show there. You can see I'm going over the buttons, and they already work with mouse, of course, but the game is still working. We are not pausing the game, we're just overlaying that menu right now. I'm doing this with the mouse. If I try to use the keyboard, it's not working right now. See, I can show you that it's not working with keyboard or with gamepad. It's not working yet. And the thing is that the menu doesn't have the focus. The game is still playing, and the focus is not completely on the interface. So we need to add another node so the interface or the menu has the focus and receives the input and not the game. To do that, we'll get the player controller and use the set input mode to UI only. This means that only the UI will receive input. So now if we compile and play this, now if we play, the focus is on the buttons, but still we can use the keyboard. So let's set the focus on one of the elements. Let's start with the play button. We got the main widget here, so we're just gonna drag from there, type play or button, get the play button and set that as the focus here. Compile and play, and you can see now the play will have focus there. And now if I use the keyboard, you can see there's a faint outline there, and that's the focus that it's changing between buttons with the keyboard. It's changing that, and the gamepad does the same thing. It works really cool. But now, and this is actually selecting different buttons, but now we need to actually get the button that has focus and switch the texture of it, because right now it's just focusing on any button, but it's not. You can see if I press the button, it's activating that button, but it's not changing to the over state when we use the gamepad or the keyboard. Alright, so let's do that now. Okay, before we continue, I'm gonna add a pause event here so the game gets paused whenever the menu is shown. So let's create a variable here. It's menu visible. So this is gonna be true when the menu is visible. I'm gonna just drag this here. I'm gonna use it right here, but I'm gonna use it right here as well when we start playing, creating the menu. Here I'm gonna set this to true because the menu will be visible. The other thing I want is to show the cursor here, and this, dragging from the player controller, show mouse cursor there, show it every time the menu is visible, show the mouse cursor, because we're gonna accept mouse input as well. If you're doing this for consoles like Xbox or PlayStation, this won't do anything for you. And then lastly, we're gonna set the game to pause. Set game pause to true. Alright, so the game is paused here. And what I'm gonna do here at the very start, I'm gonna put a branch. And let's say if the menu is visible, just do nothing. I'm gonna do here a reroute. I'm gonna unplug this from here. So if the menu is visible, do nothing. I'm just gonna put this to know that I'm going to nothing. And if it's not visible, then just play the game. So the game will not be playing here. To actually test this, let's go to the to the menu and to the play state, to the play button. Go here and unclicked. Press this button here to add a function to when the button is clicked. So when the button is clicked, I'm gonna say that set game pause to not be paused. Alright. So let's just test what we have so far. Play. You can see the game is paused. I can't play, but I can move the buttons there. You can see the little dashed lines around the buttons. If I press on play, the game unpauses. Now I can play, but the menu is still there and we are not giving the input back to the player. So let's try to do that. So we need a few things: hiding the menu and setting the input back to the player. So to get the menu from here, from the player, we're gonna import the player here first. So in event construct, I'm gonna get the player pawn. I'm gonna cast this to the twin stick pawn, which is this twin stick pawn, which is the player. So I'm gonna do that right as this starts, and I'm just gonna I'm gonna promote this to a variable. I'm gonna call it player. So now I have my player here imported into this blueprint here. Now to remove the menu from the viewport, I can just say remove from parent, and I'm just gonna say self because we are on the menu, so we can just remove ourselves from the viewport. And to return the control to the user, we can set get the player controller again and set the input mode to game only. So now we are not receiving the UI is not receiving input, only the game is receiving input. So we can compile and play this. So now you can see that the game is paused. We can move it we can select with the mouse. We can select with the gamepad. Now it's playing. Okay, the last thing I need to do here is set its menu visible to false. Its menu, I'll get that from the player, from what we set up here. Set the menu is visible to false, so this is true and the game plays. So let's compile this and play now. You can see I'm using the mouse and I can switch the buttons. I can use the gamepad and it's working. You can see the little outline there. And if I hit play, now I can play the game with the gamepad. Right? Cool. Okay, now we're gonna start building the arrays we're gonna be using for the textures. And first, we're gonna create a variable here, call it buttons array, and it's gonna be of type button here, reference, and click this to make it an array. There we go. Now I need to make 3 more arrays. One's gonna be for the image normal state. The next one's gonna be for the image over array. The last one's gonna be for the image pressed array. So these guys will have the images that we will switch between, and this will have the actual buttons. And we need a button index. This is gonna be not an array, and it's gonna be an integer. Gonna compile that. And first gonna set this here. When we construct this, when we start this menu, we're gonna set this to 0. So it's always at the first button. Now the buttons array, we're gonna set this here and populate it with the buttons we have here. So let's just I need to rename these guys first. Button options. It's very important to have the correct names. So now I'm just gonna drag these guys here. Play options, not set, but it's important to have them in this order because it's gonna be the same order they are in the menu here. So now let's just drag from here and make an array. Connect the first one, add 2 more pins. Connect the other 2. Now we just made an array, and these 2 buttons are here. If you have more buttons, just add them here and you will access them here. This will simplify adding more buttons to your menu. Alright, so now let's compile now the other images. We're just gonna populate them directly here. Select the normal array, add 3 elements. The first one's gonna be so these ones are not gonna be of type button. This is gonna be of type of object. So let's change this to object reference. Change the 3 of them. Object and object. So now select the normal image normal array. Compile first. Add just 3 elements, and now select the normal play normal, select play normal, then we're selecting the textures basically. The options normal and the quit normal in the same order as the menu. Do the same for the other two arrays. Add 3 elements. Alright, so now we have in this array the normal textures, in this array the over textures, and in this array the press textures. And it's important that we can access the textures from here because we're going to be switching the textures from the blueprint. Okay, so now we're ready to change the style of the button. So if we go to the designer tab again, you can see the play button has a style here. And the style defines the textures it has, the size, the tint that we used before in the other tutorial, and everything that makes the button present to the user. And this is what we need to change from the blueprint. It's not this variable, this option is not accessible from blueprint, so we need to recreate it and assign it to the button in the blueprint. So let's go to the graph. In the graph, you can see if you drag from the play button and type style, you can set the style of the button, but we need a widget style. If we drag from this and select make button style, you can see there's a normal, hover, and some different options we can plug here, but you can see that that is actually a slate brush. So we need to create slate brushes and plug them into these channels here. So that's what we're gonna do to change the textures. Okay, to change the textures, we're gonna take the event thick here. Let's do this at the top here because it's gonna be the bigger part of this. And from here, we're gonna do a for loop on the buttons array. So let's go to the for loop. No, I mean not a for loop, for each loop. A for each loop. So for each element on an array, which is gonna be the buttons array, for each element in the buttons array, we're gonna do something. And that something, it's gonna be check if the button has focus and then switch the textures. And why are we doing that is because when we play, the mouse gives the focus to the buttons and then they switch the textures. But when we use the keyboard, you can see I will now have the bottom one in focus, but it's not actually switching. So we're gonna check which one of the button has the focus and then switch the textures. So this is gonna say for the array element has user focus. So if this one has user focus, actually we're gonna use has any user focus. If it has any user focus, we're gonna do something with this element. Alright, I'm gonna put a branch here and use this as the condition. So if the element has focus, we want to switch that to the over texture, right? Because something is selected, the button is selected. But for now, we need first to create the texture that we're gonna switch to. If we drag the button play, we can create a style for it. We can set a style. We can set a style like this by making a slate brush, right? Button style. So let's create a slate brush. Make slate brush. And you can see the slate brush, it takes an image. It takes an image here and takes the size of the image. Let's create a variable that's gonna be button image size. And I know that these buttons are, let me just compile here. This is not gonna be an object, it's gonna be a vector 2. Not an array. Compile again. And I know the buttons are 512 by 256, sorry. And I'm gonna plug that into the slate size here. That's gonna be the size, and this is gonna be the size for all the buttons. And the image, where am I gonna get the image from? Well, I'm gonna get the image from the over array. From the over array, I'm gonna get an image, but which one? Well, I'm gonna get the current one that's testing here in the edge loop. So I'm gonna get this current member on the loop. I'm gonna assign that to the image. So basically, I'm creating an image every time this loops. So the first one will be the image for the play over. Then if that doesn't have focus, then goes to the next one. It's gonna be for the options. If that doesn't have focus, goes to the quit. So that's what's gonna happen there. Now to set the image, I'm gonna drag from here, type style, and I'm gonna set style. I'm gonna drag it over here, and I'm gonna split this pin, and this is gonna be for the over state. So I'm just plug this to the hover state, plug the branch there. So what do we have right now? Let's compile and play. Alright, so this happened because we are setting focus on that button, but we don't have a normal state. So the button is empty, basically. So, but if we go down, it's kind of working. But we need to set another one. Let's duplicate this one. And we're gonna set one for false, which basically says if it doesn't have focus, just leave it as normal, the normal state. And since the normal state here is empty, it's just going back to that default brush. Let's move this up, compress that one. So we need to do this same setup. Let's copy these two guys, Control W. We need to set this for the, let me put this up for the normal state. Let's get the normal array, plug it there. Don't forget to plug this guy. We can just add a branch there, plug the index so we can get that, and plug the image size. Duplicate this once again. Now plug the pressed array here, plug the index and the image size. Now this, let me put this guys up here, move this a little bit so it's clear. So when it's over, this is gonna be the over. Let's say this is over, and this is gonna be the normal. So when it's over, switch to this brush, which is the over array. We can add comments to these ones as well, so we are clear what's happening here. This is the normal, and this is the pressed. All right, so when this is over, maybe we can switch these guys like this, normal and over. But it's gonna be a little bit crossed here, but it's okay. When this is normal, just give it the normal brush, and when it's over, give it the over brush here that we created from the, and we are getting whatever button it's current with focus, with the current focus, we are doing these options for that one. So let's compile and play. All right, so the target is missing here. You can see I have it here, but I didn't double click here and connect it here. So the target is the current element on the array we are evaluating. So now play works, but the other ones are not working. That's because when we are over in the over state, we actually want to connect the over state in the normal slot as well. That's because that's what we are actually seeing in the, we're kind of tricking Unreal Engine here to just show us these textures texture as the normal texture instead of the normal texture here. And since this was empty, it was showing that default square. Let's play now. Now that works, that doesn't work. But if we use the keyboard, you can see now the one that has focus is the one that it's being lit up. And if we use the gamepad, it works as well. Pretty cool. Let me show you that I'm using the gamepad. I'm using the gamepad there. You can see it's working. And even the D-pad works and the keyboard works. Alright, so that's good. That's working really well. We just need to connect here the hover state here to make it work with the mouse, and the press state as well. So when it's normal, this is gonna be basically for the mouse to always work, and this one's gonna work like that. The press we connected here as well, so it works, and that should be all the connections we need to do. Let's test it one more time. See, it works with the mouse now, but you can see that one, we are going to fix that in a second. If we use the gamepad, it works. If we use the D-pad, it works. So now the problem is with the mouse, right? So let's fix that. And what we're gonna do for each button, like the play, when we hover the button, let's click this button here to create an action. When we hover over the play button, we're gonna set the focus to that one. This is just to fix the issue with the mouse. Get the player controller. Get the player controller, and the target, it's the button, the play button. Just drag it to there. There we go. Do the same for the options and quit buttons. Alright, now that we added this to the buttons, this will work with the mouse as well. Pretty cool. Now we can use the keyboard, and we can use the gamepad. That's pretty cool, right? Okay, so this is working already. You can just use this in your game and you are set. But there's a few details that I want to show you. When you're using the keyboard or the gamepad, there's this weird looking outline there that I don't actually want. So to remove that, go to the project settings, go to the user interface and render focus rule, and this set it to never. We don't need it because we already we are setting our all focus rules in the blueprint, so it's not necessary to show the user what's happening. Now if we play now, that's not gonna be shown. I'm using the keyboard now, you can see it doesn't show, so that's pretty cool. One other thing, you might be able to see that the textures are not as high quality as they should be. They're kind of jagged a little bit. We're going to change properties of the textures so they always render very crisp. So let's go here to the content browser. Let's do it here. Go to the textures, select all the textures so we can do the same action to all of them at the same time. Just right click on them and say bulk edit. What we want to change is the default compression settings here, and we can go here, just select all of them, select the compression and change this to interface 2D, which means that it's not gonna have any mid maps and it's gonna work great. So let's save that, close this. Now if we play, now you can see the textures are really crisp and look way better and will never look jagged anymore. So there you go. That's the menu. You can use it with gamepad, you can use it with keyboard, you can use it with mouse, and it's pretty damn simple. If you want to add more stuff, you can just simply add it to the buttons array and you are set. So there we go, guys. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this, and the video is kind of long, but you can see that the method is really simple. I just wanted to make every step really clear. And there we go. If you have any questions, please go to the forums and ask them there, and I'll happily respond to that. Thank you guys again. I'll see you in another training. Cheers.